I want to turn now to the president, who's also been monitoring the storm. He spent the weekend in Camp David. He just a short time ago touched down there at the White House. He spoke to FEMA officials earlier.
Yeah, he just returned again to the White House. Let's listen in.
Mr. President, how's the Irma response so far?
I think it's been going really well. It's a rough hurricane, as you know better than anybody. The Coast Guard has been amazing already. You've been hearing what they're doing right in the middle of the storm. FEMA has been incredible. We're working very well with the governor and the other governors in surrounding states. I just got back. We had the whole cabinet out, and every group is coordinated really well. I mean, the bad news is that this is some big monster, but I think we're very well coordinated. Well, I hope there aren't too many people in the path. You don't want to be in that path. That's a path you don't want to be in, and we tried to warn everybody. And for the most part, they've left, but that's a bad path to be in.
Are you going to visit Florida in the coming days?
We're going to Florida very soon.
Mr. President, you've had a number of briefings. Was there anything that concerns you most?
Well, just the power of this hurricane. This is probably, I saw somebody said 57 years now. Who knows what that means? But it's just about the biggest ever recorded that hit land, and unfortunately, we got it. Now, we may have been a little bit lucky in that it went on the west, and it may not have been quite as destructive, but we're going to see. Look, it's going to play out over the next 5 or 6 hours. I'm going in now for meetings, but it's all about coordination. I think we're really well coordinated, as well as you can possibly be. And I'll tell you what, we have great people. And a group that really deserves tremendous credit is the United States Coast Guard. What they've done, I mean, they're going right into that, and you never know. You know, when you go in there, you don't know if you're going to come out. They are really, if you talk about branding, no brand has improved more than the United States Coast Guard. And FEMA and the entire group, FEMA's been incredible. So now we'll see what happens. I think the hard part is now beginning. We'll see what happens. Excuse me? How much do you think this will cost? It's going to cost a lot of money. Right now, we're worried about lives, not cost. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
All right, the president there addressing reporters along with the First Lady of the United States. Let's go ahead and bring in Paula Reid now. She is at the White House. Paula, what's the headline from the president's remarks there?
This is incredibly significant because this is the first time the president has taken questions from the press since Hurricane Irma started to hit Florida. Last time he spoke was before he left for Camp David. I think one of the headlines here, in addition to the fact that he is pleased with the federal response, of course, and calling out first responders, is that he's not yet talking about what everyone here in Washington is concerned about, which is, does FEMA actually have enough money to respond to all of these natural disasters? You have recovery efforts from Hurricane Harvey. You have Hurricane Irma just hitting now. You have Hurricane Jose churning off the coast. You also have a lot of wildfires in the western part of the country. And there are a lot of questions here about whether or not Washington actually has enough money. But we asked the president, he said right now he's worried about bodies, not dollars.
And Paula, what's the president? We know he's been in Camp David this weekend, but how has he been getting his briefings, and how has he been responding to Irma so far?
He was in Camp David with many members of his cabinet, including the acting Department of Homeland Security chief. Pretty much all of his cabinet members were there. Now, he wasn't giving any public statements, but they did share some readouts of those meetings. And he repeatedly told people to heed the warnings of local officials. He said every time he got a briefing from the Department of Homeland Security or any of his other cabinet officials, he said, look, kind of like he said right there, this is a monster of the storm. He really used his social media platforms this weekend almost exclusively to amplify that message of local officials to tell people this is a dangerous storm and to encourage people to evacuate.
And Paula, before we go, I want to touch on this subject here. The president is getting a lot of criticism for making a controversial deal with the Democrats to provide hurricane aid and the Harvey situation. What was that deal?
That's right. On Friday, he signed a law under the spirit of bipartisanship. He said that he would sign this bill, which extended the debt ceiling until early December, but also provided much needed hurricane relief to a lot of these states that are both recovering from hurricanes and also preparing to be hit by them. And of course, as these states try to respond to these natural disasters, the primary thing they're looking to Washington for is money. So this gets relief to them. But again, there's a lot of questions about whether or not the Washington coffers, particularly FEMA, whether or not they actually have enough funds to continue responding and continue funding all of these preparation and recovery efforts.
But is this a good time for that criticism to come forward when it doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat and you're in these areas that were affected, I should say, by Hurricane Harvey?
You mean the criticism about whether or not we have enough money?
No, the criticism about whether he's, sort of putting his own party in jeopardy when you talk about midterm elections in 2018 because of the deal that he's made with Democrats and what could possibly happen going forward.
Sure. Well, it remains to be seen how people will respond to that particular deal. Of course, they're going to have to revisit this issue again about the debt ceiling in just a few months. We'll see what happens there. There's also, of course, this outstanding issue with DACA. He has sort of kicked that to Congress, saying it's up to them to pass a law to protect so-called dreamers. So perhaps he's trying to work some of his political might here to ultimately establish other deals down the road. But I think at this point, it's probably too soon to say how this particular deal will affect elections in the midterms and, of course, the next presidential election.
All right, you're the expert, Paula Reid, at the White House. Paula, thank you.